This week on DWF News.
On this episode of the DWF News, we're going to be talking about Women's Heritage Month and International Women's Day. We're going to be taking a look at all the contributions women have made over human history and the significance women play in our history as human beings in the past and going forward in the future. Now, you know, if you looked at our last episode, that I said the Democratic World Federalist is going to make a commitment every month to focus on heritage and cultural awareness. Why? Because we believe it is important to look at all the contributions each community has played a role in, from agriculture to technology to fashion to art. All these things are important because the more we see each of us do something from different regions, we start to see how we are all interconnected. So, let's get into it.
This week on DWF News.
So, last episode we had a discussion about Black Heritage Month and Black history. This episode we're going to switch things up and we're going to talk about women. I think it's important that we start off at agriculture. Agriculture probably began somewhere close to 20 to 30,000 years ago. And evidence has shown us that a woman was actually the first person to invent agriculture. And she was most likely an indigenous woman, similar to the Native Americans or the Aborigines that you see in Australia. This woman most likely was working in basically a tribal type of village where most of the time men would leave off to venture out and hunt and find animals to basically bring back to the village for food, while women would stay close to the village or the hut, if you would, and they would basically deal with issues regarding the children, education of the children, and also maintenance of the village itself. This would go into politics, and this would also go into technological advances like fabric, shoe wear, improvements to our shelters as well. And this is what led further and further to the domestication of animals and then the domestication of plant life. So in general, women were the first ones to be biologists as well too, because they were the first ones to deal with medicine and deal with agriculture and trying to control plant life. That's very important because that's basically what changed all of humanity. And then I want to also touch a little bit on the fact that women played an important role culturally from the beginning. A lot of people also believe, scientists believe, that women were the first ones to put drawings on the caves. Why? Because women were dealing with berries, they were dealing with fruits when they were hunting, when they were gathering all these different kind of organic items. Then they would mush them together. And so when you see clothing to a shift to art, that's not a big shift. While you can see men were much more focused on territory. Why? Because we were out there hunting, and territory is a big deal when you're talking about animals. Animals usually tend to focus on different territorial areas in which men would continue this on in their development, while women would mostly focus on communication, visual art, right? In which they were showing each other their emotional state or what they viewed about things or what they liked about things. Whereas in men, you were seeing them more focused on what type of animal this is, how far are we from here or there, mapping out the whole landscape. And that probably pushed forward into our views of culture and society in the world as well. And you will see that in our view of military as well. So that's an important thing when you start talking about women and what they've actually produced for society. And you look at our world today and you see what is the benefits of art, what are the benefits of culture when you're talking about music and dance. A lot of those things come from women actually, and I think we need to look at that more. I think that's the biggest failure of us as men over time, is that we started to devalue what culture has brought to us: art, music, things like just fashion, clothing, how we dress or whatnot, right? Now we realize, I think we're starting to realize the importance of these things, because now we see what is the difference between art, culture, and politics. We're seeing people bring this up more and more. And this brings me to my final point for this exact segment, is that now, because the connection with art, music, and culture and fashion and politics, now we are seeing women emerge from what was the past of basically being told to stay in the kitchen, being told to just stay with the children. Now we are seeing women going into different areas, and areas of power. If this is the corporate boardroom to the political basically chamber. And why is that? Because if we're saying women, you need to basically focus on the economics of the home, and you need to also focus on the children. Well, the economics of the home is generally the main economics of what we call Main Street in economic thought, right? Economic theory. It's called the Main Street, right? At your house, the kitchen, every day you get up, you go to work. So we're saying women control that mostly, and also the children, which is basically the future, right? Children are the future. So developing children, understanding children, teaching children is basically highly important. So women now see that, and they're saying, hey, we have to play a bigger role. And men have basically failed society a little bit there, right? And I firmly believe we shouldn't fear this change, and we have to accept. If we're going to say, well, women should take a step back, then we should look at what the steps men have taken over the whole history of human existence, right? Which has been failure after failure. And we need to see, it has been a lot of success as well. Let's not be fools about that. But let's not say also men contributed to all those successes, right? Women played a big role in a lot of those successes as well. And we also forget that historically, women who have achieved great things, they haven't been respected for those achievements as well. This is why we need to change our view of women coming into the political realm. We have to be open-minded. We cannot fear this change. And we have to keep an open heart as well. Because women, they are more open with their emotions. I think this is a good thing. Why? Because we have learned, especially in economics, that it isn't always so important to look at everything based on numbers and efficiency. Because something that can be extremely efficient can also be extremely negative for someone's social and mental state. For example, let's say if I wanted to get 100% efficiency out of a factory, right? Well, 100% efficiency means humans would not even be involved in the actual production line, right? Because I don't need breaks. I don't need people getting sick. I don't need people, getting tired or getting annoyed. I need people who don't even have an emotional state, and they don't even have a mental state as well, that would give me optimal efficiency. But Would my products be made to fit a human need? Would my company's reputation be respected by workers and by consumers? Would my company actually be producing what we really need for society, or will we just be producing at the highest capacity of our factory? These are questions we usually miss. Why? Because how men view the world is usually, like I said earlier, through territory, through did we succeed or did we not succeed? Well, women usually view the world as through a way of, are we happy? Am I happy? Is this better? Is that better? Things that cannot be solved merely by analytics and data, but it has to be solved by conversation, looking at one another in the eyes and getting to know one another as well. Very difficult for men to do that. Very easy for women to do that. So these are things we have to really look at. What are the benefits and what are the negatives to a 50-50 where 50% men and 50% women lead nations and sit on boards and actually lead corporations in the business world? This is the discussion that we need to be having. In the World Federalist, in the Democratic World Federalist Organization, will be the leaders in this discussion going further. And we're not afraid to have it. And we respect women. And that's why in this month we always say we honor all women. We don't honor just women. We want to honor all of them. And we honor the contributions they give to society. So let's move forward into our next segment, in which we discuss women in power.
This week on DWF News.
So, women in power, what's the big deal about it? Well, the big deal is that society has changed so much over the last 100 years, from women basically being in a position where they were similar to a product or a good. They could be sold, they could be traded, they could be owned. And then women went to a position of basically a second-class citizen, where they could only have rights if a man allowed them to have rights. They couldn't be sold or traded anymore, but basically they were still objects that were only used by men for, advertising, and that could be advertising sexually or advertised as a family heirloom or something that was like a trophy. Then we moved a little bit further until women became more free, but still at the workplace and in culture they were still seen as sexual objects. And we never valued them for their contributions, even in the workplace or at the home. And into modern day now, women are saying, Me Too. They're saying that we won't take this, and we're going to basically share our views, and the hell with what you think. That's okay. I think that we should respect that more. And if we're going to ask women to share their ideas, then we ought to be able to take it and hear what they think. Now, does this mean women are perfect? And if women were put into a leadership role, that we will just instantly have world peace, wars will end, and everything will turn into an instant utopia? No, it does not mean that. So, when people make those kind of arguments, they're really being ignorant. They're not looking at the facts. That is not the argument people like us, the World Federalists, are making. What we are saying is simply that women make up 50% or more of the population. The goal of democracy is to have the most voices speak up and to be heard. And the role of a republic is then to take the democracy and make laws based on those voted by those in the democracy. So, if in our democracy only men are being heard, that means that 50% plus aren't being heard. We need to change that. We need to make it more acceptable and open-minded, for God's sakes. Why? Because the more voices are heard, the more the system is improved. We can allocate resources correctly, and we can actually make the system work for every person. Equality can only be achieved through an improved system that does not view individuals based on gender or race, religion, or upbringing. It looks at each person on a case-to-case basis. What did you contribute? What did you do bad? What did you do good? That is how our system should work. A lot of talk is about meritocracy, but if that merit is not based on what is true and what is real, then that is not really merit. When I'm saying I expect someone to be at the highest level in society to accomplish high levels of success, how is that possible when I'm holding certain people out? When I'm not allowing women to be who they are? When I try to control what they look like?
This week on DWF News.
In conclusion, from a World Federalist perspective, Women's Heritage Month and International Women's Day are significantly important to everything that we're about. Democracy first starts with hearing as many voices as possible. And when you're talking about a group that makes up 50% or more of the population of the world, and also is the group that births humanity, then we have to really take that into consideration. Because if we want to have a world where children can be educated better, where our economic system can reach more people and help more people and provide more opportunity, where our political system takes in all the voices and changes the laws so the laws can be enforced correctly and every person can be brought to justice that needs to be brought to justice, and everybody that needs justice is given it, then we need to really take in the voice of women. As I've showed you through this whole episode, women play an important role in the world. They have also played an important role in our history, in their heritage, if it is agricultural or cultural, or if it is in fashion and art, is significant. Why? Because it shifts the way we view things. And when we stop allowing our stereotypical thoughts to dominate our true views and what we feel in our heart and how we see people as individuals, then we lose something. We lose that person who could really make a big difference and make big change. We actually forget. We forget the truth. We forget what is real. And we, the World Federalists, the Democratic World Federalist Organization, will make a stronger effort to listen to more women. And this whole month, we will contribute more content to recognizing women. And we hope you do the same thing. Share, follow, and also pass it along. It doesn't have to be on the internet. When you see something, say something. Say, hey, I've seen the contributions that you've been making from day to day at this company. Keep up the great work. Or, hey, you know what? You've been doing a lot of great work at the house, and you've been doing a lot of great work with the kids. And you know what? It wouldn't be possible to have such a great family without you. Or when you see them at school and you say, hey, you know what? You've been doing a great job with helping educate these kids. And my kid as well. And I'd like to thank you. And I'd like to thank you for the sacrifices you make. Or let's say you see someone just with their own kids and basically being a good mother at the park. You say, hey, you're doing a great job as a mother. I know that it's been very difficult, and you probably don't hear from just random individuals to say, thank you for being a mother. Thank you for being a woman. And thank you for being the strength of our society and birthing the future and raising the future. There's nothing wrong with that. It's weird to say those things because we've been told so long that only the things men do are great. Only the things men do matter. And everything woman does doesn't matter. This is why we tax women for things like, tampons and things they use for their menstrual periods. Why? Because we don't think it's important. We tax women for things like fertility clinics. We don't add that to our healthcare plans. Why? Because we don't think it's important. Because everything is through the view of a man. Well, we need to change that. And it starts by us just saying, hey, we appreciate your actual contributions to society. Because that's where it all starts. That's where you give tax benefits. That's where you adjust programs. Because you say, hey, those people actually give a contribution to society. So maybe we need to do more. Start with yourself first. Start with the individual. Start to see what you can do at your home. Because that's what the Federalist is all about. World federalism, federalism in general, is about individual rights. And then when you add democracy in there, it's about hearing all the people that you can to adjust the law so it meets their individual rights. Don't let people fool you. Again, this has been a great episode with the DWF News. And we hope you enjoy your Women's Heritage Month. And we hope you enjoyed your International Women's Day. And we hope you keep on believing in the peace that we can make. As an activist, as an advocate, keep it up. We hear you, we see you, and we'll have your voice be heard as well. Peace be on to humanity. Thank you very much. Have a good week.